Welcome. In the last video, I got the framework for all of my side panels done, and in this video, I'm going to be moving on to making the panels. I'm getting ready to start resawing these panels, and I just figured I'd take a second to talk about my setup. So first of all, as you can see, I've got a tall fence set up on the bandsaw, and I also have a featherboard, a magnetic featherboard set up to keep the piece up against the fence. I've got the fence adjusted, so I'm cutting roughly down the center of this. I'm going to end up with 1/4 inch panels, but I'm not aiming for that right now. I'm just aiming to cut these in half, and then I'll size them down to the appropriate thickness once they're in half. My bandsaw blade itself is a 1/2 inch, I think this is a 3 or 4 TPI blade. I've also gone and cut all of my boards to the same height. My widest panel on the chest is going to be 12.5 inches finished. So the largest I really need any of these to be before I resaw them is 6 1/4, but I went ahead and cut them all at 7 inches. That way I've got plenty to play with. I can trim them up, but any one of these, the material that's on here, what's left after trimming it, should all be good anyway. I just gave myself some extra room. The reason that helps me is if they're too tall or if they're taller, then that means that there's more material to cut through as I feed this through. So essentially what I'm going to do here, now that I've got everything set up, is I'm just going to take my time, feed them through nice and slow. Typically when I show this in videos, I've sped it up 3 or 4 times, so I'll give you an idea of what the actual time was, but just nice and slow is the key here to keep the blade from wandering and to keep the wood from burning and to keep the blade nice and sharp. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm also starting, by the way, with my least favorite board here. I did cut a couple extras, I always do. So this is my least favorite one. So if something does go wrong with my setup, I'll find it out on my least favorite one, and I'll still have plenty of wood to go to work with to make all of my panels that I need. So nothing fancy here, just a couple of bar clamps. I'm going to do them a couple panels at a time. And the only thing I'm watching for is to make sure that they stay flat and I don't over clamp them. I just want just enough pressure to close the gaps, which there really isn't any gaps, so it won't take much. And then I just need to make sure that they don't bow up or warp or anything like that. They should be fine. These are also thick still, so if there is a little bit, the edges come out just a little off or something like that, it'll get cleaned up later. No big deal. Now that my panels are all glued together, the next step is to clean them up with the drum sander. I left them thick on purpose, both for ease of gluing up, but also knowing that I was going to be cleaning them up over here. So I've got 120 grit in there now, and I'm going to run these through and get them close to the perfect fit, leaving just a little bit extra for when I do my regular sanding on these. But first things first is get them cleaned up. All right, I screwed up. I went with a different finish on this one. I decided to try out Rubio. And also this piece is gonna be sitting more in direct sunlight, so I thought, why not give it a little bit of color protection too, add a little bit of color. And Rubio has a walnut, you know, all-in-one stain finish, etc. So I did a couple test pieces, as you can see. So on one of these, I've got the pure. That's this one. On this one here, it's walnut. And on this one, I even went over with 2 coats of walnut and had a couple areas of a little bit of grain change. But as you can see, the color difference between these 2 pieces, between my test pieces and my actual panels, is enormous. What I didn't account for is all the different grain that I was using in these panels. This has a lot of end grain in it. And it just pulled in the color completely differently, and I don't like it at all. So I'm stripping them all down and I'm redoing it. Nothing else to do. So I'm back on track now. I've got the finish pre-done in all the panels. The next step is going to be to assemble the sides and the back, and then I can start worrying about putting those together. So I'm going to wrap this one up here. I'm pretty happy with how these came out after a little bit of correction. I'm thrilled with the color and how it looks now. So I still have quite a bit to do, and in the next video I'm going to start by getting all these cleaned up and ready for assembly into an actual box.